I'm Sam Dunn.
And I'm Scot McFadyen. We're the directors of Metal Evolution, 11-hour documentary series on the history of heavy metal.
One of the really important things for us was to show how metal is connected to other styles of music. And so when we talk to artists like Black Sabbath, for example, you know, the first riff in their first song they ever wrote was based on a piece from a Gustav Holst, classical piece. And I think that would surprise people to hear that there's a connection between Black Sabbath and classical music. But we just wanted to broaden the perspective for people on where metal comes from. It's not just all, guitars and heavy drums. Like, that's part of the sound of the music, but the roots of it are much deeper than that. The sort of unsung moment of metal history is the moment when bands actually started to call themselves heavy metal. Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, and Led Zeppelin, and a lot of the bands of the 70s were called heavy metal by others, but they didn't see themselves as being metal. And that changed with bands like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and Motorhead in England when they started to realize there was a new generation of fans coming up, and it was the first time that actually people said we're metal. And I think that's a really key turning point, because metal is a community and a culture of people. With Metal Evolution, we kind of made the conscious decision for it not to be a kind of journalistic magazine approach to the show. I mean, we kind of only come up to about 10 years ago. That's about as modern as we get, because we didn't want to include bands that we didn't know yet whether they were going to kind of still be around in 5 to 10 years. We wanted it to be sort of the ultimate library of heavy metal. So when people in 10 years from now go and look at it, all these bands are still part of our imagination. So it was more of like a documentary approach rather than a magazine approach. Scot and I are old friends. Scot has worked in film and TV for many years, and I was doing a degree in anthropology in Toronto, and Scot came up with the idea, well, what about a documentary film? And we did the research and realized that hadn't been done before. And it wasn't really until we were developing the idea, Scot said, well, what about telling this story through your eyes as an anthropologist? Because we were thinking it would be more of a conventional history with like getting Bruce Dickinson to narrate it or something like that. So it evolved from that point where it became the journey of sort of me as one part fan and one part anthropologist.
Metal, A Headbanger's Journey was more of an anthropological study of heavy metal, and Metal Evolution is much more the history of the music, and it's a lot more in depth. I think for the true fan of heavy metal, Metal Evolution is going to tell you some new things that you might not know, whereas Metal Headbanger's Journey was meant as for everyone, for just as an introduction for a lot of people. Our next movie, Global Metal, was about the globalization of heavy metal and how that has spread to all these different cultures around the world. We just kept getting emails about this family tree that we created, and we went to VH1 and said, let's do it, and they said, okay, and we did it.
We just want people to watch Metal Evolution and get a better understanding of the story of heavy metal and where it comes from and how it's evolved. I think even though we keep making films about this music, there still is that preconceived notion that it's sort of disconnected from everything else. It has no history, or that it's just a bunch of guys who like to smash beer cans on their heads and listen to heavy metal music, right, and throw the devil horns. But I think we just want people to get a better sense of where it comes from, and that it's a dynamic genre of music that's changed a lot over the last 40 years.